inside the lines. That wasn't your strong
I
suit.
was never inside the lines color, just something to peek at and then.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are the Owatonna School Board. This is Monday. It's the 26th of February. It's 5:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Eric, our attendants?
All present.
We are. Let's start with the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up tonight would be to start with approving the agenda as presented. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 4 tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Elstad, is our mission moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, tonight is my honor to honor some of our fantastic Owatonna High School students. I'm first going to ask Teresa Wunderlich and Blake Davison to come up to the table here. You get to stand for a few minutes if that's okay. Teresa and Blake are this year's winners of Owatonna High School's Excel Award. They are both juniors, so we have one more year with both of these talented individuals. They were nominated for their excellence in community, education, and leadership. The Minnesota State High School League Award recognizes these high school juniors who are active in fine arts and/or athletic activities. They demonstrate leadership qualities and are model citizens, not only in our high school community, but the broader community of Owatonna. We are so fortunate to have students of this caliber that attend our high school. So much so that in January, Owatonna High School also was excited to announce that Teresa Wunderlich was selected as the state-level Excel Award recipient. Teresa will be recognized on 45 TV during the broadcast of the 2024 winter tournaments and has been invited to participate in an on-court awards ceremony at the Girls State Basketball Tournament on March 16th. It is my pleasure to announce to the board these Excel Award winners, and they are now available for your questions, members of the board.
And there usually are. Board? Questions?
No, congratulations, you guys. That's
Right?
awesome.
I just want to say thank you so much. You're such awesome representatives and ambassadors of Owatonna. You really are just a fine example. Thank you and congratulations.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Congratulations.
I also tonight want to recognize our AAA award nominees. Jacob Ginsky, who is a senior, is not able to make it this evening, but Laken Meyer is, so I'm going to ask Laken to come up. Owatonna High School, both Laken and Jacob are Owatonna High School seniors that were nominated for the Minnesota State High School League Academics, Arts, and Athletics Award, better known as AAA. The AAA award acknowledges a male and a female high school senior with a 3.0 or higher GPA who participates in league-sponsored athletic programs and fine arts activities. Both Jacob and Laken participate in a variety of programs. I'm not certain how they have time to do much else with their life. They're so busy, but they're taking advantage of all of the great opportunities that Owatonna High School affords to our students. We're very proud of Laken for the work that she has done to receive the AAA award on behalf of Owatonna High School and our community. All of these students, Laken included, are wonderful role models for our younger students who have their eyes on you all the time. They're watching you. And we're so glad that they're watching students of your caliber as well as Blake and Teresa. I'd like to open it up for your questions, but we appreciate how they inspire excellence for every learner every day and others around them. Thank you, Laken. Questions from the board?
Plans for next year?
I'm not exactly sure where I want to go yet, but I want to attend a four-year university down in
Do you have like top 3 that you're looking at? No?
Well, I think I want to go to Colorado Christian University.
Perfect. Out of state, good. Your dad loves that for tuition.
Nice.
Awesome. Congratulations. Good for you.
Yeah.
I have a question. What are your activities that you're doing?
That I'm involved in.
Yeah.
I'm involved in girls swimming,
carolers.
All right, wow,
Wonderful.
nice.
Congratulations, Lake, and thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Nice honor. Great way to start our meeting.
Absolutely.
Item 5 is public forum. I'll check with Sarah one more time. Any cards? No cards for public forum. We'll move on. Item 6 tonight would be the general information. In your packet, you had the enrollment report. Do any of you have questions for Mr. Elstad or members of his staff with regard to the enrollment report? Very good. Moving on. Item 7 tonight, discussion items only. We'll start with board forum. Deborah, do you mind? Yeah, Deborah, would you mind if we start on your end of the table?
I don't think I have anything.
Okay, I guess I would say I enjoyed the performance of Newsies I saw yesterday very, very much. What a great opportunity to see that auditorium full of the biggest cast I think we've ever had in a high school play, and wow, what fun.
Yeah, ditto on the show. It was really, really fun to be in there. And you'll note from the packet, the policy committee has met since our last meeting, and those notes are in your materials.
Got it. Two things that I would bring to your attention this Friday, and the superintendent will talk about this again. Coffee and conversation with the superintendent is this Friday at 8:30 over at the district office. Any members of the school board that would be available, that would, Elizabeth and I can as well, so
Potentially.
Elizabeth and I will plan on that.
Okay, great, thank you.
And the second thing would be the very quick reminder that next Tuesday is our work session. It's at 4:30, and it's at the district office. And I know we bounce around a little bit, but the district office is the location. And you'll remember, this is the work session with Dr. Ray Queener, and we're going to talk about the boundary conversation.
And will you remind me, with that work session, will there be members of the input team present? Like,
Actually, it's just Dr. Queener.
just Dr. Queener? Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
if
Okay.
I may.
Yeah.
What Dr. Queener will be reporting on is the process thus far,
Okay.
because board has been kind of out
Yep.
of this
Yes, we're
process,
out.
because
Yep.
it's been very much people, quote-unquote, in the trenches, if you will.
Yep.
So you'll get kind of the combination of input team, design team, and then how the process rolled forward and the concepts that are still out there
Okay.
for consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, so that
Okay.
will be the crux of it.
Perfect.
And maybe
Thank
just
you.
one other clarifying. So it's a work session, so there's public notice, it's open to the
Yes.
public. Will there be, well, we'll just watch. I don't know if there'll be handouts or materials in advance that you want us to review, so I'll just watch for that.
Yeah, and again, this is a process still. All of the materials actually have been posted online
Oh, all right.
within the boundary conversation on our website. And so those are the materials that will be accessible for the board as well.
Okay,
that
I'll go
evening.
there.
So, yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's 4:30, it's a hard stop at 6.
that's correct. It's presidential primary next Tuesday, and so we have a hard stop at 6. There was a bit of a scheduling, trying to get a meeting scheduled, because it was our preference, Dr. Queener's preference, that he give you an opportunity to do some thinking about it, because the work session on March 11th would only give you a week of processing time. So,
Thank you. Eric?
Next Monday, I'll be spending the morning at the high school for the day. Excited about that. See it full of all the kids at the time.
I'll be there with you. But also, just in case, Friday, if I am selected for jury duty on Wednesday,
yeah.
I will not be able to attend on Friday, I'm sure.
okay,
Other than that,
Yeah.
that's it.
great. Thank you for letting me know.
Robotics leads are leaving on Wednesday for Duluth, which is the regional that sent us to championships last year. So we'll see how this year goes. The rest of the team then leaves Thursday. I went and watched Newsies on Sunday. It was amazing, as everyone else is saying. If you haven't, go see it. And then we had a speech meet on Saturday in Red Wing, but we also had another speech meet happening at the same time in Mankato, so that the musical people could get back early enough to go perform. So, because I'm sure you all know, there's a massive overlap between speech and, the theater kids. So we had both going on at the same time. It was cool to have 2 activities happening the same day.
I would report that similar news. So the Owatonna speech team had 2 speech tournaments at Red Wing and Mankato East. I was at the Red Wing Speech Invitational, and the Owatonna speech team won first in team sweeps for middle schools. So it's based on entry sizes, so there's small, medium, and large schools based on entries. And so we won first in team sweeps. I plan on going to Newsies March 1st, so it's going to be exciting. And I have no other news.
Thank you. Next item up would be the school board committee meeting minutes. In your report, you had meeting minutes from facilities as well as policy. Any questions for your fellow board members on that? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the administrative report. We'll start with Mr. Elstead. Anything that you would like to add regarding the administrative report?
Yeah, I would. Thank you. So I want to give you the, now we're a week in, if you will, into or 2 weeks into the legislative session. There's been a number of things that are being bantered about. I'm following 2 bills rather closely. The first, which is we are providing our support for the amendments to the school resource officer bill that's on the floor. I believe that bill may come to vote in not too long a time. There's been still some dissension amongst the legislators, but they feel like they're getting closer to a final resolution. And what we're leaning into is providing our SROs more flexibility to help us in safety situations where they can use holds if necessary as a part of maintaining a safe environment for our students. The other one, and I'm proud to say that I'm actually going to be testifying on this item, there's a bill that just hit the floor last Thursday on tax equalization aid. It's a non-funding year, so this is going through the tax committee, but there's some momentum around what I have been advocating for now going on 14 years, which is the fact that not all districts are equal when it comes to funding for our students, and many districts like Owatonna lean into our taxpayers very heavily, and other districts don't have to do that, and we want to find a way to equalize that. So I'm actually testifying on that topic coming up here. And by the way, next Tuesday, March 5th, we also have a board meeting, but I'll also be at the Capitol next Tuesday advocating on that behalf. I'll be back by the 4:30 time, I'll guarantee you that. But I think my actual testimony or participation is a morning hearing. So I'll be there for that. And it's the C Day at the Capitol as well that day. We talked a little bit about attendance area, more to come next Tuesday as we take a look at that. I'm very proud of the work that the input team and design team have put into really coming up with new iterations, recognizing that this is not an easy topic for anyone to talk about. But as we look at the future of our schools and providing those balanced situations, it's a topic. When a community has agreed to neighborhood boundary schools, it's something we have to talk about every so often. It is my hope that we can find a solution where we don't have to continue to do this, every 5 or 6 years. Then maybe we can extend it to 10, perhaps. So, and then lastly, just as Mr. Sebring indicated, coffee and conversation will be this Friday at 8:30 at the district office. And those are all the items I have to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We have item B1, which would be the American Indian Education report, and Julie Sullivan is coming up to share more information about that.
Make sure to press that button too, Julie, to get a green okay. Thank you.
Good evening. I apologize for my voice. I was subbing today at Lincoln Elementary in Fayette, and I've never counted down 3, 2, go as many times as I did today, and I think my voice is paying the price for it. So each year, districts are required to have an American Indian Parent Advisory Council meeting, or to create a council. We are in an interesting position in Owatonna. We have about 10 students that identify as American Indian. When we reached out to parents to set up a meeting, we had one respond positively. She's been a part of it before. And so we had a meeting set up. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come that day because there was a work conflict. We still put together our information, and we are still trying to meet with her. We do not qualify for American Indian Education Aid. If you have at least 10 students, but less than 20, you don't qualify for the aid. So once you hit 20, you do, and we are not quite at that, which we found out this summer when we have to do some applications for things. But at the advisory committee meeting, what we were going to talk about is just some of the things happening at the state level that affect our American Indian students and families. Many changes in the education and some of the standards that are coming down that are incorporating American Indian education. If you think about just this year, at the legislature passed in May that on Indigenous Peoples Day, there was required, professional development, whether it was with students or with staffs. Schools had an option to do different things. But we're seeing more incorporation of American Indian education across the board in a lot of our different standards that are coming from the state. And that was a big piece of what we were going to talk about, and that we will still talk about when we do meet with her, or if anybody else chooses to come to that meeting when we reschedule. So.
And just as a follow-up, this report comes to the board as an annual expectation from the Department of Education. It doesn't require any action by you, but in fact that the meeting or that the conversation with the board and parent that we're trying to achieve here was had taken place.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none.
All right, thank you.
Julie, thanks. Item 8 tonight would be the consent agenda. The quick reminder, we are approving the minutes from January 22nd and February 12th, the disbursement and personnel reports. Do you have any reason to pull one of these out? Hearing none, will one of you please entertain a motion?
I move that the board approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Eric, if you would.
Yep. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Joanne?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 7-0 pass.
Motion carries. Very good. Thank you. Item 9 tonight, several items that the board needs to act upon, the first of which is the policy revisions. This is the second reading. We had the first reading back at our work session. There was some conversation that came up, and let's start this agenda item with discussion.
I did want to ask to possibly table this once again, just because I think it's just such an important policy, and I think it could be a little more specific. In my previous communication, when I mentioned the internet use policy and how specific that is in regards to things that are unacceptable with internet use, it seems to me that the same could apply to library materials and possibly also curriculum, which is anything in the classroom. So my hope was that we could have more discussion, maybe add some of those specific things into that policy, but then maybe also include the school board in the decision of library materials somewhere, even if it's just in the reconsideration process, instead of leaving the school board completely out of it. So that was my thought, suggestion.
Other thoughts, conversation?
Well, as a member of the policy committee, I think we heard your concern. I'm going to speak for a little bit for my colleagues there. We felt that anything that you were suggesting was digging deep into management, and we really feel that as a policy and as a board that's doing governance work, this isn't necessarily where we need to be. And all the suggestions that I saw from you were deep into management, and I felt like we clarified that we employ the superintendent and that the superintendent is responsible. And certainly you guys can add on to that.
No, I'd agree with that. The perceptions and the opinions were very management driven, and we felt that our role is governance. And the other thing too, with trying to tie it to the electronics policy, we had Callie Clausen here 2 weeks ago, and she's the human component of that policy. And so she talked at length about her process, the guidelines, what she goes through, and again, so between her human capacity, her training, her certification, she's really qualified and has the resources to navigate that. From a management standpoint, we're governance.
We are governance, but I think it's also very important to have accountability. And if people are left on their own to make decisions, in my conversations with Casey Clausen, it's been great so far, and I would fully, even just in the limited conversation I've had with her, at this point, I would fully trust her to make decisions regarding those library materials, but she's not going to be in that role forever. We're not going to be in these roles forever, and policy seems pretty permanent. You know, once it's there, unless there's a legislative change. So I just want to make sure it's as well done as possible as we are, because it is brand new. We're creating it. And also just I understand the concepts between governance and management, because I take this home with me and I review it when I'm looking at my agendas, getting ready for the meeting. But at the same time, the statutes do state that the school board is responsible as part of the duties to superintend and manage the schools. So I would feel more comfortable if there was more accountability besides just Casey and then appealing to the superintendent. It makes sense to me as a board, if we ultimately are responsible for what's happening in the school district, that I would know if there are books being challenged by the community. I would not want to be in the community and have somebody approach me and say, I tried this whole process, and why is this book still on my shelf? And then I say, I have no idea what that book even is. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I would maybe just offer a couple counterpoints. So to your last one, I may think we all experience that, and that really is the nature of our work, which is every day, every week, right? People say to me, hey, there's this situation at such and such a building, and I'm not happy with something. And again, as we've discussed and as we've been trained, you know, my response is, well, have you talked with the teacher? Have you talked with the principal? Have you talked with the superintendent, right? I might send a little note to the superintendent and said, hey, such and such a person has a concern about X. Heads up. But that's really the extent of our work. Now, at the end of the day, there's no question that the ultimate authority for the district does lie here as a board, but we're in no way in a position to manage and get into the details of every building decision or custodial task or book selection or, there's just thousands of them. So how do we pick and choose which one that we're going to drill in on and sort of be more managerial? So that's where I come from. The other thing I would just remind you, and again, I think this is part of what makes the policy sound, is that it has an appeal process. So it's not a single individual to start with. It's a group of individuals that's selected. It's representative of teachers, the media specialist. I think Julie's role is in there. There are parental
community
roles.
member.
I think there's even a role for a student, given the right age
Community member as
situation.
well.
Community members. So again, it's a cross-section. It's not an individual. So there's some check and balance right there. And then there's an appeal process, right? So the superintendent ultimately has to answer for the final decision as well. And so I guess it's those checks and balances that are built in that make me comfortable with the way the policy stands.
If I may, I think the reason that it's important that the policy is broad, in my opinion, is that it allows for community movement and shift in perspective. That, we're the board right now. And if the future board comes along and has a different opinion, they're allowed to build off of the broad policy. And right now, as it is a new policy, allowing for that broadness allows for the community to progress, whether that's going more conservative or progressive. I mean, community perspectives change, and so allowing for that within a broad policy is important.
Ultimately, I think we all can agree that we just want to protect our kids, and we just want to. One thing I've always told my kids is you can't unsee things and you can't unhear things. So knowing I would, in this case, I would just err on the side of more conservative because you're less likely to do harm that way. And that's the way I do my job.
Well, and I think the issue there, Elizabeth, is harm to whom? Right?
Children,
Well, but children bring different stories and different perspectives and different experiences. So I think our role is to be careful that we protect all children. And again, I would really defer to the professionals who are closer to those kids and closer to the materials to recognize what's appropriate in a library. But that's my position.
Unless they're girls in the athletic program. Then we don't protect them.
We're talking about library material.
But you're talking about protecting the kids.
Any further discussion on this topic? Hearing none, would one of you please introduce this motion?
I move that the board adopt policy 606.5, library materials, and revise policy 613, graduation requirements as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed?
nay.
Duly noted. Item B tonight is the 2024-2025 school calendar revision. At our work session last time, we heard about the READ Act and the necessity for creating professional training time for our teaching staff. And the school calendar that you have presented tonight takes into consideration those changes and implements the training dates. And these would be a change to the original 2024-2025 school calendar. We'll open up the floor for discussion on this.
Mr. Chair, if I may, as a point of clarity, indicate within the suggested calendar that the 3 dates, October 21st, February 17th, and April 21st of the 24-25 school year would indeed be a no school day for pre-K to grade 5, but would be an e-learning, flex learning day for grades 6 through 12. So there's a difference there. Our secondary staff understands what the requirements for them with checking in with students, whereas our pre-K 5 students would have no e-learning expectations on those days.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
And again, just to clarify, these are directly a result of the implementation of training for the READ Act, right? Which we know is important and
That's correct.
frankly critical, so.
Yeah. Our secondary staff, and as you remember when Julie Sullivan presented this, our secondary staff will be engaging in some professional development that may be a bit different, recognizing that a number of our secondary staff will be participating in the READ Act training as well. It became just untenable for us to hold middle school and high school and ALC in session, recognizing a number of staff would be out.
Sure. Well, and I do appreciate that it was designed in such a way to kind of piggyback on already, days that are already out of session so that families can, maybe,
Plan accordingly.
yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Eric, I believe you have the motion ready to go.
I move that the board approve the 24-25 calendar revisions to include 3 provisional development days to accomplish the READ Act training.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item C tonight is the county land. It's a county land issue. I'm working off of an old agenda. I apologize. It's just identified as county land. And the quick reminder here is that there is that parcel of land on what we would call 218, adjacent to the new property of the Owatonna High School that it's in the domain or it's in the possession, the ownership of the Owatonna School District. And the Owatonna School District basically wants to say to the county, this is your land, and you will care for this land. And the land includes a parcel that goes well into the ditch and ironically right up to the middle of the highway. So this is an old issue that just needs cleaning up.
And Bob Olson, our Director of Facilities, is here tonight. If you have any further questions about this is something the county has approached us about to just kind of clean up ownership within that claim.
Discussion. Any questions? Anybody on this?
Just to clarify, there's no real meaningful value to the district of that little chunk of land. I'm seeing all the.
No, there's no possibility of development here because again, they decide ownership from the very middle of Highway 218 to into the ditch.
Right.
And so there's no possibility, this is just a,
Sure.
it probably should have been taken by, but there's a, MnDOT owns a certain part of that property and then it butts up against county property there as it becomes a county road. And so
Yep.
there's, that discrepant area of land is the one that we're discussing.
And frankly, I mean, they're probably entitled to it, so if we, there's no reason not to.
There's no transaction for this. This is just a
Signing off.
signing off and a quit claim deed.
Any other questions? If one of you would have this motion ready to go.
I move that the board approve and sign the quitclaim deed as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item D is the ratification of the 2023-2025 tentative agreement with special education paraprofessionals. I do see that Chris Pika is here and would be able to answer any questions that you might have. We'll open it up to the floor for discussion.
How many more agreements do we have until we're done?
Two more?
Well, that's good. That's exciting. Done.
Narrowing down, we're
Good.
just about finished with all
Good.
of our employee groups. so.
Awesome.
Do any of you have any questions regarding the agreement with the special education
No, sorry,
paraprofessionals?
no.
Just that I think it's fairly consistent, right, with all the settlements we've done thus far, and makes perfect sense to stay in line. And
If one of you has this motion ready to go, I'd appreciate it.
I move that the board approve the 2023 to 2025 agreement with the Owatonna Educational Support Staff, Special Education Paraprofessionals, and authorize the chair and clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the school board.
second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item E tonight. Why didn't these things ever exist when I was in high school?
right?
There's an extended trip request. I'll ask Mr. Elstead to fill us in.
Yes, what you're being asked to consider approving tonight is a trip that is being planned for June or July of 2025. So it's a year, or actually about 18 months away, not quite 18 months, about 15 months away. Michelle Engleson, who is our French instructor at the high school, is asking for you to approve a trip to Quebec City and Montreal for gaining, because there's still a very large French-speaking contingent that lives in those communities, and it'll be a great relevant opportunity for our students, particularly those students that are in French 3 and French 4, to get those relevant speaking experiences. So again, that's what Michelle and the district are seeking, is your approval for this extended trip opportunity.
All of the information was in your board packet. Any questions for Mr. Elstead? Hearing none, would one of you please introduce the motion?
I move that the board approve the extended trip request to Quebec City and Montreal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item F tonight would be gifts to the district. And Mr. Elstead, if you would, are there any highlights?
Yes, there are another number of gifts tonight. I want to draw to your attention a couple of kind of unique gifts, and you'll see about halfway down the list that 2 sets of hearing aids and 6 handheld magnifiers were given from Jill Ochterkirk. Jill Ochterkirk is one of our longtime employees. She's an educational speech and language pathologist. Her father, Jack, passed away earlier in December. And Jack was a 30-year veteran of the Bloomington Public Schools as a speech and language pathologist and special education coordinator. And so on his behalf, they're donating those items for our students' use, which would have been exactly what Jack would have done. I knew Jack personally, and he's a longtime Mason as well, and just feels like giving back to his community. So it's a unique gift, but it's exactly the way Jack would have wanted it. So I just lift that up. It's pretty cool when those things come to fruition, so thank you.
Thanks for that insight. Any questions? Any of you have that motion queued up?
I move that the board approve the resolution of acceptance of gifts as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and Eric, if you would, please.
Yep. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Jolene?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 7-0 pass.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 10 tonight would be to adjourn. I will entertain that motion.
Second.
So moved.
Wow. Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Good meeting, folks. Thank you very much.